Howdy, my name's Callum, also known as Dranda Games, and today we are going to be checking out a preview copy of Isle of Trains All Aboard by Dranda Games. You might have already heard about Isle of Trains, and this is a re-implementation of it. The main features, of course, are the improved quality, the revitalisation of a known game, but also there are some rule changes, some component quality upgrades. It's changed the way the game ends, and I know it's a very canned statement to say it's a lot of game in a very small box, but this is one that I feel holds up straight away just from the outset. It is just a deck of cards, some components, some cardboard bits. It's a very, very light footprint game, and yet we've played this endlessly and got a lot of replayability out of it in the short time that we've been able to check it out. As I've already mentioned, this is a preview copy. We aren't being paid for any of the media produced, so all opinions are our own. And I can already tell you that this is going to be quite a glowing preview. I have got one or two things that I want to mention, but let's get into the content and find out what we thought in depth. So here I've got Isle of Trains All Aboard just midway through a game between two players. This player has got two extra engines, This player has got two extra cards on the end of their train. They've got a hopper and they've got a tanker. This player has got a hopper and a tanker as well. What a coincidence. However, these are at different levels, which means they can hold different numbers of cards. And that's the way the game works. You upgrade your different cards to get different amounts of things, but it also increases the level of benefit that you get from each. The main board is made up of 6 tiles, including this one I've taken out, which are little contracts. And of course, to claim the contracts, you need to deliver what is there. And then on the reverse, you can gain extra bonus victory points by doing a second contract, be it that one or that one. The more points you will gain equals the more difficult the contract will be. And then we also have the actual ticket cards, which is where you can deliver meeples to. So let's say that we had a meeple on this card. This player could then say, oh, I'm going to deliver this passenger to here, and I would gain a benefit of 5 cards for that one. The game ends based on player count. With 2 players, it is on the 4th. With 3 players, it's on the 5th. And with 4 players, it's on the 6th. And the idea is that as you claim contracts, you will advance the cube, which tracks how much time has passed, up until you get to the actual number that you need. And then everybody will take one final turn, and then the game will be finished and you count at points. On a player's turn, they will be able to do one of 4 actions. They can draw from the main deck, they can deliver any cargo they've got, they can build extra train cards, or they can load, which is to add cards to their train or to an opponent's train, gaining benefit as necessary. So let's take an example turn, and we will play as this player. They have only got 1 card in hand, and it is a building. Players can only have 1 building, unless of course they have got a card that says otherwise, and this guy's already got a building, which allows them to gain 2 victory points at the end of the game for every meeple that they still have. So they aren't going to really want to play this. But just because of the quick anatomy of the card, we have the card name at the top, the cost in the top left, we have the resources that it could be on the left hand side, and we have the benefit of building this building. When you load it, you would load it this way, and you would be able to see what benefits, what cargo this can count as. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually load this card. And we can choose to either load it into one of our cards, or we can load it onto an opponent card. And now what we can do is we could load it onto the opponent's hopper and gain an extra action and 2 cards, or we could load it into their tanker and be able to gain 2 cards and be able to do 1 extra delivery for free. Now we've got nothing to deliver, so we're going to actually choose to take this one, which is going to be to gain 2 cards and take an extra action. So we'll take 2 cards, get an extra action, which is really, really beneficial, because now that they've only got 2 extra spaces in that card, which means they can only ever place 2 more cards in there unless they do a delivery. The other thing to note is that the extra action is really beneficial because we only get 2 actions per turn. Now, the other thing to take note of is your actual engine's power. This engine, as a level 1, only gains 4 power, and every card that you add may reduce that power. And it doesn't cause it to stop, it doesn't change anything, it's almost like just a card cap of what you can have. As you increase your engine, you will gain stronger locomotives, which means that you'll be able to pull more. So at the minute, we've got 2 spare, at the minute they've only got 1 spare. And what we're going to do is, for our free action, we are going to build. And I've just seen that we've got a coach. And a coach allows us to load people in to gain 3 cards and a victory point. Or we could get the level 3 coach, which is going to be space for 3 meeple. You gain 3 cards and 3 victory points. So you can see how they increase in level as time goes on. Also, when you play these cards, you get a bonus person out of the bag, and that is how you gain them. But because we've only got a level 1, we're going to play that one there. We'll pretend we spent that one because I'm going to use it in a second. We'd gain a meeple straight away, but when we load a meeple into there, we would gain 3 cards and a victory point. But what we could also do is upgrade, which is the same as building. And let's say we had a wombo number of cards in our hand, and we decide to upgrade this to this. We can do so in the same way that we'd build, but we would reduce it by the difference. So 7, take away 1 is 6. We'd only have to pay 6 cards to build it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get rid of those, discard the old one. Now the benefits are pumped up, which means that if we were to, as our action, place a meeple into there, we'd gain 3 cards and 3 victory points. The other thing to note is that your trains are always available for other people to use, but if you were to do a delivery, you would only be able to do it from the cards that you've got loaded. So again, let us decide that we have actually got 2 oil loaded into here, and we want to make a delivery. We're going to deliver to Devon City. We take both of these out, discard them, take Devon City, place it there, this side up because we've not delivered a secondary contract yet, but we would actually have to then increase the amount of time the game has gone on. Secondary contracts don't increase that. The only thing that increases that is by claiming primary contracts or by filling these tickets. And that's the game basically in a nutshell. At the end of the game, you would gain points based on the actual quality of the cards that you've got in your engine. You gain bonus points for having meeple or passengers or cargo loaded in. You gain points for your contracts, but you can also gain these tokens, which are extra little victory points, as you can see from here. But yeah, that is Isle of Trains all aboard. Straight away, I can be completely honest, I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was really great fun. I know it's the canned statement, but it is a small box and there is a lot of game to be played with. It's one that you will thoroughly enjoy and engage with really, really well. The game boasts incredible levels of replayability and player interaction based on different tactics you can use, and I think that's the key staple from this game. Because you can interact with other players by utilising their train, by loading their train with things and getting the actual engine ability of what they've done, you're able to really manipulate your deficits to be able to gain benefits, effectively. And the game drives you to really engage in that sort of play because you really need to be making use of what everyone else has got. There's been multitudes of times where in a single turn I've gained lots of cards because I've triggered somebody else's engine, and then I've been able to get bonus actions and then be able to trigger it from someone else to get bonus actions and be able to do so much in a turn. Of course, that is quite late game and that is based on circumstances that are there at the time, but it's one that the game really encourages you to make use of. Because if you're not, you are just playing a race to get the most powerful locomotive with the best things behind it. The contracts, I did really like the idea that when you'd actually completed something, then you kept that card. I did think that it locked some players out at 3 players. It did come a little bit airy there, but 2 players and 4 players, it was brilliant. 2 players because there's so much to choose from, and 4 players because you get that 7th card that's available on the map. 3 players, I found that it became a bit of a race to be the player to claim 3, as it would be. And I know that that's quite quick going to trigger the end of the game, but if you've got that control element of you've claimed 2 and the other 2 players have only claimed 1 each, everyone's going to be on tender hooks of if you claim that 3rd, you're going to end the game and you're in a really strong position because you've got those extra victory points. So that's one thing that I did think was a little bit imbalanced that we found. However, talking to other gamers who have played this game, they found completely different, so maybe it's just the way that we played as a gamer group, I don't know. 2 players, I found this game really shone. We've played it mainly at 2 players and being able to take those contracts and then really plough a lot of things into them to get the bonus victory points at the end from the other side made it so that the game wasn't long, but also it was more refined in terms of what we wanted to do. 4 players was excellent, but it just didn't hold the same sort of direction as every other player count. And I think that's because you've got so many other players to interact with, you get really caught up in the taking advantage of a moment when you've got it. Which is brilliant because it adds to that chaos of player interaction and you are forced to think they've got a hopper, I really want 3 cards, I'm going to give them some coal. It stops other people from doing it as well because hoppers can only hold at level 1 card. So you're really sort of balancing out the building your own train as well as utilising others. Whereas at 2 player I found you were more focused on your train, your direction, what you wanted to do, and it was more of an act of it's beneficial at the time to interact. Two-player play interaction's still there, of course, because you're racing to get these contracts, you're racing to deliver passengers to certain locations, and of course being the first player there is going to get you greater benefits than others. And it's that balance again of discarding your cards to someone else. You don't know what their end game plan is because, well, we quite often play it with contracts quite hidden to the side so people can't look at them, and no one's got a solid state memory. You're not able to just glance and know what they want. So if you have got the Flint's Beach, you don't necessarily know whether other players don't necessarily know how many crates or how many coal you need for that. So they may take the punt, give you some crates, get the benefit of your engine, but actually put you in a position stronger to be able to flip it over and gain 16 victory points instead of the original 6. Replayability wise, I found it was great because you could set different tactics every time. The actual tickets get loaded up differently, and I know that the Kickstarter stretch goals include different tickets. One thing in my head, for me, I don't know why, but I would like different map tiles. And I know that's not going to actually change anything for replayability because it's a nice balanced system of how many of each resource you need. But I think it's more just for the variety of aesthetics. I'm very visual, I've made it very clear in many videos, I'm incredibly shallow. The artwork on these is beautiful, absolutely fantastically done, but I think because you're given a map that's made of cards, the gamer inside of me automatically says, isn't it obvious to get new map tiles? I know that it won't extend the game, change the game, or actually probably not add any replayability, but I think for me in my head it's just something I'd have wanted to see because I am incredibly shallow. In terms of actually replaying the game with the same person multiple times in a row, you do start to develop more tactics, which I think is a fantastic element of any replayability game. Because it isn't always going to be a solid state refined method because it's a card game, you are going to be shuffling, there's the chaos of what you get drawn, but it's also dependent on what you are trying to achieve. So if you have got a very coal heavy train just on the off that you are trying to get the Alpine Lodge contract and be able to fulfill that quite early on, then you're able to really make use of that. But then next game you might not, and you might instead have a very crate heavy, or one that is making use of cabooses quite a lot, so you're getting a lot of special abilities, or you want one that is really heavily triggered on, well, how the actual benefits and bonuses work. I mean, quite often the cabooses give you extra actions, bonus actions, or get triggered when you do certain actions, so it really refines how you're going to do that then as well. And I think that refinement of how you play in terms of not perfecting a method, but being able to really get tactical in taking different options is an excellent element that's worth keeping in mind. But it is limited in what it can provide. And that's not a negative because it is a small box big game, but it's still a small box game, so you are going to be capped in terms of what it is that you're able to engage with and do. And I think that's fantastic for what it is because you don't want this game to sit on the table for too long. You don't want it to get stale and stagnant with one person really storming ahead with all the right cards at the right times. And it hasn't happened to us. I feel like this game runs in a solid 30 to 40 minutes and is on the table for the right amount of time for that play. And then afterwards you can play it again and it won't be the same experience, but it will still be the same direct line of how you're going to achieve your goals. Component quality is not really one that I can comment on. It's a prototype copy, so it wouldn't be fair, but I will say the artwork on all of these cards is absolutely gorgeous. It really pops. The meeples are already pre-screen printed on these in terms of the prototype copy, and they look absolutely awesome. I am a massive fan of the green fella who looks like he's just come off Skeggy Beach from the 80s with a big moustache and a stripy wetsuit. Lovely, love it, absolutely love it. With that as well, the actual box fits everything in as it is. I don't know whether they're doing an insert inside the Kickstarter. I feel like everything is really, really well done as a prototype. Visually, I love looking at this on the table, so I can only imagine that the finished copy deluxe editions are going to be absolutely outstanding as well. And the final question for any preview or review is, would I recommend it? And for this one, I'd say yes. Honestly, hand on heart, yes. It's a really lovely 1 to 4 player game where you're able to just build an engine, utilise other players' cards, and then be done. It doesn't stay on the table any longer than it needs to. It's incredibly fun while you're playing. The player interaction happens throughout everybody's turn, so there's no disengagement at any time, and you're constantly aiming towards something which is going to be based on what you've achieved thus far. And because it's something only you've achieved and nobody else can then touch it, it really makes it so it's very, very refined. which I think is a fantastic thing for any engine builder or any contract-based game. Because the moment it's not refined and anybody can get into it, it only takes one person to be in the right position at the right time to snatch it away. And this game doesn't have that, which I think is absolutely outstanding. One thing I would like to see in terms of this game is a player aid, just a quick one, because it took us a long time to get used to the phrases of BLDD, which are build, load, deliver and draw, and of course they're colour coded as well. Now I'm usually very visual, but it just didn't sink in for me. I also want little prompts to remind me that I'm only allowed one building, because there's been multiple games where I've played and people have built X amount of buildings because there's nothing outside of the actual rulebook to tell that you can't. I think also just a quick brief of the caboose explanations. I don't think we've got that in the rule set we've got, but I know the Board Game Geek rule set has been updated, so I'll check that out. I believe they've probably added it in. But other than that, I think this game does exactly what it needs to do. It re-implements a classic game to a fantastic quality. It's incredibly engaging, incredibly fun, and I would honestly recommend that you check it out on Kickstarter while it's still on. This has been my preview of Isle of Trains All Aboard. I have loved this game. Small box, big game is the staple of this, and I hate that statement with a passion, and yet I am using it non-stop throughout this. It has been excellent fun, and I have been really pleased that I've been able to check it out during the Kickstarter campaign, and I'm now off to go back it. Until next time, thank you ever so much for sticking around. I'll catch you again soon.